all I can say is it's a great pity. But believe me, the consolations will be there too. Then I see you again on July the 5th, a month today.
Yes. Thank you, Alfred.
Goodbye, my dear.
Some of these drivers. Didn't did anything as luck would have it?
No. How did I get here?
Well, you came down Charing Cross Road, miss. Coming from Leicester Square, I reckon.
But I was calling a taxi in Harley Street.
I'm afraid not, miss.
Things look different. Where did you say I was?
This is the Westfield Hotel, miss.
But there isn't such a place.
Oh, come now, it isn't all that new. We've been up about 4 years.
What date is it?
June the 5th, 1957.
57?
Was there something missing, miss?
Yes. 7 years of my life.
Yes, I understand that, but you know Anne. Miss Meadows. She's a brunette, about 5'4". Are you quite sure? Well, please contact me if you hear anything. Thank you. I'm really quite concerned.
I also am concerned, Mr. Stanton. You promised to send my Paris airplane ticket to Westfield Hotel yesterday. Might point out, plane leaves tonight at 7 o'clock.
You mean she never got to you either?
She? Who, please?
Anne, my assistant, Miss Meadows. She was supposed to deliver you a ticket and then go to the bank and hand in the weekend receipts, but she's been missing ever since she left here yesterday. Nobody's seen her at all.
Paris is most beautiful this time of year. Is it possible Miss Meadows used receipts and plane ticket for adventurous vacation?
Oh, you don't understand, Mr. Chan. Anne and I are going to be married. Anne!
This is the Stanton Travel Agency. Are you Mr. Stanton? I found this money with your name on the deposit slip and an airplane ticket for a Mr. Chan. I've no idea how they got into my handbag.
They got there because you were taking them to the bank and... Anne, what's happened?
I'm sorry, but my name is Mrs. Anthony Holmes.
Oh, you're Anne Meadows. We've known each other for 3 years.
Please. Sit down, Margaret. I have to speak with you alone, Mr. Stanton.
Hmm? Oh, sure, yeah, sure. In there.
I would be most grateful for privilege of hearing explanation.
Yes, come on in, Mr. Chan. Now, please, what's happened?
It's amnesia, Mr. Stanton.
Amnesia? You mean she's lost her memory?
No. She's regained it.
I don't begin to understand.
Margaret is my sister-in-law. She was married to my brother, Anthony.
Married?
She lost her memory 7 years ago, the same day my brother died.
And has been missing until yesterday when memory returned.
Oh, no. No, she was in a sanitarium for 4 years. She disappeared from there 3 years ago.
That's when she came to work for me. Her name was Ann Meadows.
Ann Meadows. Ann Meadows was a name she gave to a doll she had as a child.
What am I to do?
We were going to be married.
There's nothing you can do, Mr. Stanton. Her memory has returned, but all recollection of you and of the past 7 years has been completely obliterated.
Then we'll have to call in doctors, do something.
Now, please, this is why I came along with her today. Margaret discovered the airplane ticket and that money and insisted on coming here. But she doesn't yet realize all that has happened. We must allow her the opportunity to catch up gradually with all those years she lost.
Is that medical advice?
Dr. Alfred Black of Harley Street can answer that better than I can. I've left her alone long enough. Goodbye, Mr. Stanton. And please, don't discuss this matter with anybody.
Yes, that's how she'd want it.
Thank you.
It was a sad story, Mr. Chan. Margaret's husband, Anthony Holmes, was a pretty wild character. Plenty of money, but quite conscienceless. There was never a time when there weren't other women in his life. He had about as much regard for other people's feelings as he had for their safety.
Forgive me, Doctor, but I do not quite follow you. What do you mean by safety?
Well, you saw Cecilia, his sister, the tortured cripple. There was a car smash back in '48, with Holmes driving like a maniac.
And Anthony Holmes survived.
Well, they say the devil takes care of his own. Anyway, 7 years ago, Margaret had decided on a divorce.
Oh? Divorce?
She had ample grounds. A love letter she'd discovered from her husband's current girlfriend. The tragedy of it was that right at this time, I had to tell her she was going to have a child.
Very sad. Tell me, did she have said baby?
No, she lost it the same night she lost her memory. And incidentally, her husband.
Most distressing misfortune.
It was a strange sequence of events. She left this office. There was an accident right below these windows. A big truck skidded and seriously hurt some 6 pedestrians.
Was Mrs. Holmes hurt?
No, all she suffered was a slight abrasion. The casualties were brought in here. I was too busy with the serious cases to see Margaret. I sent word to her husband, and he came along and took her away. As I said, he'd been treating her pretty shabbily. But I must say he looked pretty conscience-stricken when I told him she was going to have a child.
Tell me, Doctor, could it possibly have been the collision which occurred when Mrs. Holmes left your office that caused her to lose her memory?
It seems amnesia set in later, when Holmes, driving her home from my office, was killed in a car crash.
No doubt, again, due to wild driving.
That's what you'd think, but you'd be wrong. Because Holmes was killed before the crash, right there at the wheel. And that's why his car went out of control.
I see. Was it heart failure?
Murder, Mr. Chan. You asked me if Margaret's amnesia was due to the truck skidding below these windows. All the evidence says no.
Why?
Because according to the police, Margaret, still in her right mind, 2 hours after she left here, deliberately poisoned Anthony Holmes.
Would you tell me how?
Just a minute.
Yes, Doctor.
Oh, nurse, please give me the medication prescribed for Miss Cecilia Holmes.
Yes, Doctor. Oh, the keys.
Oh, yes. Here they are on the desk. Thank you. These are the pills which I give Cecilia Holmes to numb the excruciating pain in which the poor woman lives. This vial contains 20 of them. 1 pill will ease a person suffering for a while. 5 pills or more taken at once will kill. The coroner found the equivalent of 10 of these pills in Anthony Holmes's system. The vial containing the other 10 was found in Margaret Holmes's handbag.
I see. May I, Doctor?
Yes, please do.
Then the theory is that Mrs. Holmes was in full possession of faculties when she left here with husband. Then she gave husband death-dealing pills on way home. The consequent death of husband caused by said pills brought about the car crash which made her lose memory, hmm?
Exactly. That's the police case, and it's a good one. Not that the police were able to bring criminal action against an amnesia victim. Margaret was placed in an institution, remained there for 4 years, then she escaped.
Oh, escaped?
Disappeared into thin air until yesterday.
Then for 3 years, lived as Ann Meadows. What now, Doctor?
That's the irony of it. I may be able to keep her out of jail for a week or two on medical grounds, but with her memory back, the police are bound to press that 7-year-old murder charge.
Margaret's arrest is only a matter of days, perhaps hours. If only we had time to prepare her a little. There's so much the poor child doesn't know about losing her baby, the fact she has a murder charge hanging over her.
But correction, please. If Mrs. Holmes killed her husband before losing memory, then she will remember having killed him.
Yes, that's one thing that worries me. I'm sure she doesn't remember it. Only this morning she asked me how Anthony died. Is it possible she lost her memory before she killed him?
In that case, husband would have been stranger to her at time of his death, and wife would have had no motive for murder.
My brother was bad, Mr. Chan. He destroyed everything he touched. Me, Margaret, even my poor nurse, Joyce Gibbs.
Please tell me about Nurse Gibbs.
Well, she wrote the love letter that Margaret found. Anthony's current romance. Both denied it, of course.
What letter was signed by said Nurse Gibbs?
No, she used a pet name, Lotus Bud. Margaret traced the letter to her because Joyce had been stupid enough to head it with her own address, the flat she lived in when she was off duty.
What has now happened to Nurse Gibbs?
Well, when Margaret brought the letter to me, I sent her packing.
Then how would Margaret, that is Mrs. Holmes, have come into possession of the pills that killed her husband?
Oh, very simply. Nurse Gibbs always kept them for me. When I told her to go, I suppose she put the pills where Margaret found them.
I am most grateful. Thank you. Oh, one more question, please. You are convinced Mrs. Holmes killed her husband?
Well, who else could have done it?
Please forgive me, Miss Cecilia, but from what you just told me about your brother, many people could have done it. Even you.
All right, Charlie.
I've just found most interesting report in police accident file.
What accident? What are you up to this time, Charlie?
Accident of skidding truck on Harley Street. Injuring many pedestrians 7 years ago.
Well, what about it?
At time of accident, police took names of all people on the spot. However, the name of Margaret Holmes is conspicuous by its absence.
Dr. Black knew she was there. He treated her for an abrasion and then sent for her husband.
Yes, I agree, but he was too busy with other more seriously hurt people to talk to her. Therefore, he had no reason to know what name she had given to the police.
What do you mean? If she didn't tell the police her name was Mrs. Holmes, well, what did she say her name was?
Ann Meadows.
Great Scott. You know what this means?
Yes, it means that Mrs. Holmes lost her memory 2 hours before her husband's death. It also means she is innocent of husband's murder because she no longer had motive.
You're right, Charlie. Hello? Is Mr. Chan there, please? This is Richard Stanton. Yes. It's for you, Stanton.
Oh, you listen also. Yes, Mr. Stanton.
Oh, Mr. Chan, I just got home to my flat, 6 Rectory Place. As I arrived, I heard a shot.
Shot?
Door was open, I ran in, but somebody slugged me. I couldn't see who.
Please go on.
When I came to, I saw her.
Saw who?
Anne, Mrs. Holmes. I believe she's been shot.
She has only fainted. We'll be all right in a few moments. Ah, yes. The bullet was deflected as you came through the door, Mr. Stanton. You surprised the would-be killer who slugged you and made escape, believing they had killed Mrs. Holmes. Oh. I observed you dropped keys. These are yours, are they not?
Oh, thank you. Yes.
Now, tell me, did Mrs. Holmes have key to this apartment?
Well, of course not.
Strange. And yet door was open, and she was inside. Apparently, would-be killer has a key. Knew Mrs. Holmes was coming here and waited inside for her. Had Mrs. Holmes ever been here before?
Well, naturally, when she thought she was Ann Meadows. In fact, this is where we met, 3 years ago. She came here, rang the bell, I opened the door, and there she was.
3 years? Just after she escaped from institution. Why was she here then?
Well, she couldn't say. She couldn't explain it at all. It was almost as if she was, well, sort of walking in her sleep.
As victim of amnesia, perhaps living in strange half-world of past and present. Tell me, how long have you been living here, Mr. Stanton?
Oh, 5 years.
Who lived here before you?
No, I've no idea. Ann came to work for me soon after we met.
What I want to know is why she came here today.
Oh, evidently, a young lady has now recovered sufficiently to answer question.
Anne, don't be frightened.
I'm not. Not now.
What happened? Tell us.
I rang the bell and the door was answered and I saw a gun pointing at me.
Who was holding a gun?
I couldn't see. The arm was behind the door. I think I must have fainted.
All right, Mrs. Holmes. Excuse me, Mr. Stanton. Now, can you tell us, please, why did you come here today?
I came here to discuss matters with Nurse Gibbs.
Nurse Gibbs?
First name, Joyce. Now, please try to explain.
I am trying, but nothing seems clear.
Well, one thing is clear. Somebody knew that Mrs. Holmes was coming here today. Someone who knows that she's a threat while she lives.
Who could I be a threat to?
To whoever killed your husband.
Killed? Anthony?
I regret, but Inspector has spoken too soon. However, damage is now done.
Anthony killed?
Yes, Mrs. Holmes, unfortunately, your husband was murdered. I shall explain later. But just now, tell me, did anyone else know you were coming here?
I did, for one. Margaret left a note for me saying that she was coming to clear up matters with Joyce Gibbs. You see, this is where Joyce lived 7 years ago.
I see. I begin to see daylight. Then Nurse Joyce Gibbs could still have Key. Nurse Gibbs, who had romance with husband Anthony. You, Mrs. Holmes, probably came here to see Miss Gibbs before.
No, I can't remember ever coming to see her. Yet I know I've been here before.
To see me, Ann?
Before that.
Could it perhaps have been just after you lost your memory, when your husband took you home from doctor's office? Perhaps he stopped here on way back to country.
Why would he have done that, Charlie?
Dr. Black said husband was very conscience-stricken. What if he came here with wife to break off romance with girlfriend Nurse Gibbs? This also could be what Mrs. Holmes remembers in subconscious mind.
Yes. And it fits, Charlie. The husband brought her here, had a showdown with this Nurse Gibbs, who had the pills, remember? Then Nurse Gibbs gave the pills to Anthony, 10 of them, and planted the rest in Mrs. Holmes's bag.
Seems likely, and yet...
What?
How could missing Nurse Gibbs know that Mrs. Holmes was coming here today? Oh, Miss Cecilia. Please, did you tell anybody contents of this note?
Oh, yes. One person. I called Dr. Black.
Oh, nurse, you've met Mr. Chan. He'd like to ask you a few questions.
Yes, Mr. Chan.
I am trying to find Nurse Gibbs. Please, where is she now?
I haven't any idea.
Dr. Black says she is a friend of yours.
She was a great friend. Only I haven't seen her for years.
You are quite sure?
Quite sure.
Sometimes I seem to be on the edge of recalling things. Little things, like coming to this flat. Long before I met you, Mr. Stanton. And then the veil drops again and the thought's gone. Like a will-o'-the-wisp.
Yet I feel sure you are on the brink of remembering everything that happened during the years you were Ann Meadows. I believe you drift from past to present.
There's nothing I can put my fingers on, Mr. Chan. If only
Very careless driving on wet roads. Fortunately, no collision, nobody hurt.
Ann.
Am I? Anne?
Please, Mrs. Stanton. Mrs. Holmes? Anne?
I seem to remember.
What do you remember?
She stood there.
Joyce Gibbs?
Please do not stop now. Go on, try to look back.
And he stood there.
Mr. Holmes, your husband.
He said, oh, no, it's all so cloudy.
Please, what did he say?
He said, I've come to finish it. Margaret's going to have a baby. I want to go back to Margaret.
Then your husband did bring you here the night he died.
And what did Joyce Gibbs do? Oh, please, Margaret, you've got to remember.
Yes, try.
I will try very hard. I seem to recall.
I am most grateful to you, Dr. Black, for your valuable time. However, it is most essential, as I hope you will soon see. Nurse Baker, I deeply regret, but it is still necessary to make inquiries about Nurse Joyce Gibbs. Perhaps more important now than ever before.
I can't tell you anything, Mr. Chan.
Because you wish to protect her?
I never said so.
Excuse me, nurse. Well, Inspector, you look most frustrated.
So will you be when you hear my news. Nurse Gibbs was away at the time Anthony Holmes died. She left London just after leaving her job with you, ma'am. Took a nursing job at St. Mary's Hospital in Birmingham. And she was on duty the night of Holmes's death.
There you are, Mr. Chan. She went away. I haven't seen her since.
I sincerely believe you. Dr. Black, I find it most necessary that I again see the pills you prescribed for Miss Cecilia Holmes, sister-in-law of Margaret Holmes. Would you give Nurse Baker the keys?
She has them. Get the pills, Mildred.
Yes, Doctor.
Oh, one moment. May I? Thank you. Ah, yes, the pills. Most interesting. However, I find this key more interesting.
Why?
Mr. Stanton, may I have your keys, please? Identical keys. It is curious that key to Mr. Stanton's present apartment, formerly occupied by Nurse Gibbs, should be on your key ring, Doctor.
But that's not my key ring. That's Mildred's.
As I thought.
What are you trying to prove, Charlie?
Not trying, Inspector, have already proved. Thanks to a 7-year-old telephone directory which showed that apartment occupied by Nurse Gibbs was also shared by a close friend, Nurse Baker, who still has key to same, therefore had access today.
Are you saying I tried to kill Mrs. Holmes?
Yes. I'm also saying you did kill her husband, Anthony Holmes, when he came to that apartment with his wife. You gave him a drink with 10 pills. Pills inadvertently left behind by Nurse Gibbs. Then you planted 10 other pills in Mrs. Holmes's handbag.
This is absurd. I had no reason.
Everybody had assumed there was big romance between Anthony Holmes and your roommate, Nurse Gibbs. Evidently, she wrote love letters signed with pet name Lotus Bud. Actually, you were Lotus Bud. You had the romance.
You can't prove that. Anthony Holmes is dead, and Mrs. Holmes had lost her memory.
Yet memory can often play very queer tricks, and has today. Excuse me, Miss Baker, but face already ugly enough without scars from acid. Inspector?
Mr. Chan, you didn't have to come for your airplane ticket. Margaret and I were going to deliver it.
Oh, to, Westfield Hotel?
It's on our way to the registry office.
Most excellent news. Congratulations.
Thank you. But without your help... Margaret might never have remembered me.
Perhaps not. However, I'm sure she will not have same trouble again. So long as she remembers her new name, Mrs. Stanton. Good luck to both of you.